welcome to Some Good Tea, where we drink some tea and we share some tea. I am your host, Katie, and we are now in the third week of NaNoWriMo. My gosh, how the time's been flying by. This week, we're sharing tea with my talented friend Risto and discussing his experiences as a lifelong creator and author. Let's jump into the episode. Today, I'm sharing some tea with my friend Risto.
Hi, I'm Risto.
The tea that we're enjoying today is a new one that I got during FanX. It's by D&Tea, and it's called Shadowfell Slumber. It's a very lovely tea. You like kind of more of the like fruity ones, so that's why I picked this one for you. It's really hot right now, so maybe let it
It's piping hot
chill.
Tea. Just like the tea we're about to spill. Bum, bum, bum.
Bum, bum, bum. I don't know if I've ever spilled any piping hot tea on this podcast. It's a very misleading. Okay. But, you know, maybe one day. I need to get some of my dramatic friends on here, because Risto is not dramatic at all.
I just let that awkward silence sit.
Nice
let you think about what you just said.
Think about it. Well, today we're talking about, because it's NaNoWriMo, National Novel Writing Month, we're going to be talking about writing. Yeah. And Risto is one of my many wonderful, talented writer friends, and so I wrangled him into coming on my podcast. So you guys know how this goes. We're going to roll a 20-sided dice and just ask each other some questions about writing and how much it's so fun and it sucks so bad.
Okay, so self-intro. I write in the middle grade fantasy space. So kids who are in middle school. So juvenile fiction, immature humor, adventures.
Like youthful
youthful.
Humor.
Yeah, it's not like immature.
It's not immature. It's youthful humor for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that's my perspective. I do not represent all writers, but I will on this podcast.
Yeah, on this podcast.
Just kidding.
He is speaking for all of you. Everybody.
You are mine.
Yes. But yeah, I have really enjoyed the One Piece that I've beta read for you. It was really fun. It was really, really fun. Hopefully you'll let me read some more sometime. But yeah, glad you can be here. Do you wanna roll the dice?
I do.
See what we end up with. First roll.
It is a 19.
19.
Critical hit.
Oh, this is a great question. Why do you write?
Ooh.
What do you do it for? Who do you do it for? Like, why? Why do you write, Risto?
Okay, so probably, I could give the classic answer that every writer does, that you just have an imagination that's just like out of control and you've got to do something with it.
It just needs to get out of your head and blah, 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 blah.
Mm-hmm. But that's what motivates me to read and make up stuff in my head. But to actually write, I'm actually really motivated by like themes that I want to explore in my own life, right? And so putting it down on paper, I've done journals before, but for some reason it's way more satisfying and I get way further with my own personal thoughts if I'm exploring it through characters and through situations and stuff. And especially if I want to communicate that to someone else, if I tell somebody the conclusion that I came to, that like, oh, this profound conclusion I came to, like it doesn't go very far. No. But if I tell it through a story and there's a character, then maybe they get it. They really get what I'm trying to say. That isn't to say that I actually know what I say in the end. That's what motivates me, but it like helps me explore it to be like,
explore like different mindsets, deep questions, superficial stuff, whatever, but just like that exploration of thought.
Yeah. So particularly in my writing, if there's a theme or a question that I want to explore, I usually will have at least two characters that represent opposite sides of it. Ooh, and then kind of see where they evolve. So I don't like getting to the end of like a novel and being like, definitively this is the answer, because I don't.
This is
like
right, this is wrong, or whatever. Here's
the
moral
Make it messy.
that you have to conclude, or whatever, because you don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so everybody is right, everybody is wrong. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, there's potential for either side. Oh, I really like that.
That's what motivates me in the end. Yeah. I mean, I'll come up with like really creative premises that I'm like, ooh, this would make a great book. And sometimes it'll hold a candle, but usually it's when I get a theme that I'm really passionate about. That's when suddenly I'm like, okay, I'm writing this book, I'm dedicated to it. So it might not be the best premise I've come up with or whatever, but in the end, I feel like it's more satisfying to me.
Yeah, I think that's really important. There's a lot of emphasis as writers, as storytellers, to like tell the story, have a beautiful plot arc or whatever, but like you can get lost in the sauce, right? And you can forget, well, what are you saying? Because even if you're not trying to say anything, you're saying something with whatever you're writing. And you can lose that, I think, when you're so fixated on, like, I need to get my plot points out, and it needs to be a story that's never been told before, and a plot with characters that aren't cliche. At this point, everything's cliche. Everybody's done it at least once before at some point. But no, I really like that. I really like that. I think for me, like, in storytelling in general, like, or reading stories, or watching movies, or playing different like video games or things, I like getting into the heads of other people and seeing life in a different way. Maybe it's a way that I don't like, right? Or that I disagree with, but just the act of putting yourself in someone else's shoes and going on a journey or an adventure or just an exploration of thought, like, I really like that.
Yeah. Same.
Yeah. That's a good question to start with.
I feel like it went right into the deep end.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. If we're not going into a rabbit hole or, like, some really deep stuff, then what are we doing on this podcast? What are we doing, really? Nobody knows.
We got tea so we could spill it.
Yes. Yes. That's exactly why we got tea. It's cooling off a little bit. I've been able to sip teensy bits, but, it's a 2. Gosh. From the top to the bottom.
19 and a 2. Symmetry.
What is the hardest thing for you to craft in your writing? Is it big picture, world building, little details, dialogue, action, etc., etc.?
Ooh.
I know. I don't know. So I know the stuff that I really like to do. I really love dialogue. I feel like I can build a scene really easily. Like, if I start with a dialogue stream and then build stuff around it, that's a really solid method for me to, like, get a scene moving that I'm, like, struggling with. So I really like dialogue, but I also really like describing stuff and just making it pretty in somebody's head. Like, oof, I love that. I think my problem isn't, like, do I have something that I'm not good at or that I don't like, because I like the process of writing. I think my problem is that I'm too verbose. And I've always had that problem.
She's particularly loquacious.
Yes! Yes.
Hermione.
I talk too much. I write too long. I have tried to write short stories. And they always become a novel.
How good are you at revision? Because you can fix that in revision, or does it feel like
But I don't want to,
right? Okay, yeah.
The time
that's the problem.
Yeah, by the time it's become like a novel, there is so much of like world building and background and story that's there that I don't want to like trim it out and then lose all of that, right? So I think if I were to just think in like simpler terms and less like big picture stuff, that I would have an easier time. But I do get so immersed in that world building aspect that it's difficult for me to just keep it simple. Yeah. Short, sweet, to the point. Like,
so I have a random analogy.
Yeah.
So when you're painting a picture, you could do it like detail by detail, you know, from like one corner to another or whatever. And by the time you get to the end, you're completely finished, right? Yeah. That is not nearly as effective as laying down a background, making things like really messy and sketchy, and then later putting in like the details and really making it come together. Yeah, but you have to be confident enough in yourself to make something really messy and really disgusting until you get to where you're at, right?
Oh yeah.
And so you're delaying gratification and all that stuff. And I feel like it's so easy in writing to be like, well, I want to make a scene and I want to make it really, really good. Yeah. You know, put all this energy and focus on it, and then like you have, you know, that it bogs you down, and it's not the most effective way.
When I've tried to do like short stories, and I've never voluntarily done this because I know this about myself, like it was always as an assignment kind of thing, it always became that problem because I was trying to refine it and contain it down into this like small little space, but it had tentacles and it was crawling away, and it already had all this other detail and growth that, like, if you cut it out, it's not the same story anymore. But I have the same problem with, like, all the academic and scientific writing that I had to do too. Most of the time I was going through and cutting paragraphs and chunks out of assignments and things to shorten it to the required length, which, like, sounds like a brag. It is not a brag. Like, that was the worst. It was the worst. I really wish I could have, like, written something that was, like, the right length without having to, like, then edit it to the point, like, just so much work. It's so much work. That is a very uncommon problem. I know. And there were occasions, like, especially if it was a topic that I didn't care about, then it was hard to write and just get anything on paper, especially for academic stuff. But most of the time I was, like, over my word counts, over my page limits, and had to, like, cut lots out. And it's awful.
Ugh, it feels terrible.
It does.
It feels like plucking hairs from your arm. One by one.
You, like, work so hard to, like, build it. Yeah. So, I don't know. I'm sure there's ways that I could get better at telling short stories, or, like, doing a short story in an already established, like, a branch off of a thing, so that it wouldn't feel quite so bad. Yeah. I think if I worked at it, I could try, but I gotta work on my other stuff first.
Yeah.
But I love world building. I love writing dialogue. I love doing action. Like, I love action scenes. All of the above.
I think what really helps, what has really helped me, is to have different types of writing projects, right? Where I distinctly tell myself, I'm like, you are going to change the way that you write, the way that you're formulating this, right? So I started out with short stories, and then it took me a long time to suddenly work into, like, oh, maybe I could do, like, a full novel.
Yeah.
And I tried out different ideas. There was one that I wrote, like, 2/3 of it, and then gave it up because it wasn't going anywhere until finally I was able to do, like, a full story. So, like, for instance, I am somebody that I have pacing problems in that I will either make my novel, like, whatever it is that I'm writing, be, like, super, super action-packed, like, you know, high intensity the entire
really
time.
Intense.
But,
million miles an hour. Just go, 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 go.
Or the absolute opposite, right?
Oh,
and
no!
So, like, I have a hard time, like, making...
between.
Yeah. And so I have to be like, okay, I'm going to do a short project, and it's going to be like this, and I'm going to practice this type of writing, you know? Yeah. And so that's helped to be, like, change up the format with which you write. And then when you write something that you actually care about, you can be like, oh, I have those skills I gained in something else. Instead of trying to develop skills in something that you already know you're really passionate about. And if you mess up, then you ruin your...
What do we do? Yeah. No, that's
if that
really
makes
smart.
Sense. That was really abstract. Sorry.
No, that's really smart. Like, having those exercises for you where it's like, it's not so much about writing this story. It's about gaining the skills while writing this story to write the other.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
I think that concept gets lost too in young writers, inexperienced writers. You're just getting into it. There's so much, like, you have a thing that you want to tell the world or that you want to share that's super important to you. Okay, maybe hold off on that. If that one's, like, the really big important one, hold off on that and do something where you're like, okay, I'm going to write this other thing that I don't care about quite as much to practice doing a dialogue scene. Or, like, having an action scene and then going to a calm scene and then going to an action scene and having it be paced and balanced.
Yeah.
Instead of just, like, a car chase the entire time.
I would
That's
say,
smart.
So I do edit a lot of people's works, friends, other prospective writers and stuff like that. And my most common comment is usually just keep writing, just keep going.
Yeah.
Like, you're going to figure it out. The more words that you get out there, the more you get a sense of your own writing and where you want things to go. And it's like any sort of skill. You just got to keep going.
Yeah.
There was a girl that, a couple days ago, I was reading her, it was like a vampire novel that she was making that was very, very humorous.
I love that. We need more of those. Everybody's super into, like, the vampire thing, and it's like, make it funny because it's getting so tropey now.
It had its heyday in, like,
so
end of
long
like
ago.
the 2000s.
Yeah.
And then it disappeared. Everybody hated it, and now it's sort of, like, coming back, which
It's
I like, but it
reemerging.
needs to reinvent itself. But
a little bit.
Yeah. There's a bunch of problems that she was having in it, and I was like, you know what? There's a lot of really good things going on though. Like, keep writing, just keep going, and you'll get there eventually. Like, don't get mired in trying to make things, like, perfect or really, really great. You'll figure it out. But
No, I think that's really solid
advice.
We've said that a lot with these episodes for this month, that the best thing you could do for yourself as a writer or storyteller creator is to read lots, write lots. Like,
Amen.
The more you do it, right? It's a muscle. Muscles. We got to work them out. Do you want to roll a dice?
Yes.
Okay.
20.
20. This is a great question. This question we've gotten each time we've done this topic, which I actually really like.
Oh.
What got you started? So we know why you write, right? We know why you write. But what got you started?
I'm gonna trauma dump right now. I'm just kidding.
Yes, life barf. Get that tea and spill it.
So I guess with writing, I was a kid who had trouble socially, right? Like I didn't have friends at a certain point.
Yeah.
I actually had a group of friends growing up when I was in elementary school, and then moving on to middle school. I dropped those friends because I thought they were turning into bad kids at the time, you know, like now I'd be like, okay, that's
through,
immature
like,
and whatever.
Weird phases, and it's hard. Like that was your first time when, like, guys, be nice to your kid self. Like that was your first time doing anything, right? You'd never had a group of friends before. You didn't know. We're dumb as humans.
Like somebody holds out a beer or something like that, or like a marijuana drug, right? And I flip out, right? And I'm
totally
like, I will never talk to you again.
And panic when like your more mature self would have been like, I'm good, and still been able to have the resiliency to like maintain a friendship. I think that's okay because you'd never done that before. You didn't know any better. Our past selves are dumb, right? Yeah. I was also dumb.
So, yeah. Anyway, I dropped from my friend group, and I was kind of just cut off from everything. Like, I did school and, you know, did stuff at home. And so, like, I just more and more internally, stuff was just creating a world inside of my head, right?
Yeah.
And so I would make up these little adventures, and I would draw pictures and stuff like that. And I would go out in the fields, and I would pretend I was, like, surrounded by people until it got to where I was like, you know what? I should just write this down. And so I just would write little scraps of stories, and then more and more of them. And then I had a binder of them. And then I would try to tell somebody my stories, and they wouldn't get it. And I'd be like, well, you can't hear any of the rest of my stories.
You don't understand my life.
Yeah. So it was
never
always
writing again.
Things. Yep. The drama.
Right. No, I love that.
Yeah, that's what started.
How old were you when you feel like you were starting that little journey?
Well, it also helped that. I don't know. I think I was like naturally pretty good at writing. So when I would write stuff for school, I would usually get praised, or I would like I won like a contest when I was like in third grade. Anyway.
Oh wait, so you were pretty young. You were super young.
But yeah, got really into writing when I was in middle school, like when the isolation hit, right?
Yeah.
And
middle school's rough.
Yeah, it's rough for everyone.
It's rough. It sucks for all of us for different reasons, but yeah, that's fun though. It's really cool.
Maybe.
Do you still have any of those like little binders or notebooks?
Ooh.
Do you?
Yeah. There's one that my mom really likes that was like, I think I was in 4th grade. The story was the earliest recorded story was went to an Easter egg hunt, and it was a kid that brought back home some eggs that he didn't open up, and they turned out to be dinosaur eggs. The dinosaurs hatched. Yes, the dinosaurs hatched, and they ate the entire family.
That is
so
awesome. Hell yes. Oh my gosh. Guys, I freaking love dinosaurs. We haven't had a dinosaur episode yet. That's the cutest story. Okay, super dark. Best story. I would read the crap out of that. You want to write something like that again, Risto, you just let me know.
All right. Yeah, my mom was super proud, but my dad was like, who is this kid?
Yeah,
my mom's like,
pretty
what?
dark. I wasn't expecting you to be like, oh, and then they had dinosaurs for pets. Dinosaurs that ate the people. You knew what was up. You knew what was up. You were a realist.
Yeah.
At that age.
Jurassic Park would never have happened under my watch.
Dude, freaking Jurassic Park. I love Jurassic Park
that was
so
do you remember
much.
when it came out?
Yes,
so terrifying.
I do.
So the guy who wrote it, Michael Crichton,
yes.
His life is fascinating to read about. He's someone that, and I wish I would have like studied this right before so I could give actual like details that are.
That's okay.
But we're gonna paraphrase.
Y'all can call us out. Come at me. Whatevsies.
But he's somebody who was in one career and then another career and another one, and he just kept switching. Like I remember of the things he had done with his life were pretty heavy. Like he went through med school. Like,
buddy.
And dropped out of being a doctor. So like
buddy.
He did so many things, and
That's
the
hard.
thing that carried like through all of it, he just kept writing and writing and writing, and the thing he's most famous for is all the things that he wrote. You know, like Jurassic Park, there's like the Andromeda Strain, there's Timeline. Have you seen Timeline?
Yes.
Ugh, that one's so
Andromeda Strain's one of my favorites of his.
Like, I feel like you'd love Timeline too, because you love Renaissance fairs and stuff like that.
I've read all
Okay. Yeah.
I like Jurassic Park the best. Because dinosaurs. Andromeda Strain is, like, so smart. Like,
yeah.
I would love to be able to write sci-fi the way he writes sci-fi. Like, that's so smart. I can't.
Here's the thing, though, Katie. You have lots of education that if you don't know something, you can figure it out. And you really, if you figured out how to apply it in a fiction way, some of the things that you know, you blow people's minds easily. Like, to you, it'd be like, oh, this is like really easy for me to come up with, but people would be like, who have no experience with that, right?
That's fair. That's fair.
But one thing I wanted to say about this is writing is awesome because you literally make up the rules yourself.
You do.
You can create a novel any way that you want to. You can follow conventions. You don't have to follow conventions. And you can do it at any period in your life. Don't think that you always have to. If you're a writer, don't think that every period of your life you have to be fertile and producing stuff.
Yeah.
But if things go wrong in your life, you know, you have career problems, you can still be writing if things are going really great. Like, try out writing in different types of moods and different like places in your life. You know, I know some brilliant people who they didn't get to writing until like their kids were grown up and out of the house. And then suddenly they were able to kind of like let it out, let it shine. So anytime in your life, like, I feel like everybody is a writer or a creator, maybe is a better way of saying it.
Yes, so. Absolutely. Like, amen to literally everything that Risto was just saying. Like, you never know where life is going to take you, right? And if this is something that you're interested in and maybe like it's fallen to the side because other things are taking priority right now in your life, that doesn't mean you're not still a writer. Yeah. That doesn't mean you can't still become a writer. And maybe you are a writer and it's your thing and that's your focus. That's awesome. And maybe you take a break from it. Like, it's very much one of those things, like, you're not going to it's not like a football player where you're like, oh, you have a bum knee and now you can never play ever again, right? Like, you can be a writer at any point, and you can write about whatever at any point, and your writing's going to change as your life changes, and maybe you're not super great at it, but like, the more you write, the better you will be, and you don't have to be the next J.K. Rowling, like, right now. Yeah. Like, writing is something that can stay with you constantly. I love that. I feel that a lot in my life. The way, like, I've used writing and that type of thing just for my personal mental health. Like, to just be able to just write and take a break from all the school. Like, it's great. It's great. And there were times when I would just write and write and write so much. Like, so much. And then there were other times, like, where it was like I was in a desert. I hadn't written for, like, years, you know? But you can always come back to it. You can always come back to it. So don't feel like you have to be that career-driven, published author right now that's putting out 2 novels a year. Like, no. Yeah. Just keep... Sorry. It's okay. Just keep your mind open. Yeah. When inspiration strikes. When it strikes you. When it strikes you. I love that I didn't know that about him, that he had, like, had this whole other career beforehand. It was, like, multiple. Yeah, that's wild. And, like, honestly, also so hopeful, too. Right? Because, like, life is rough. Life can throw you a lot of curveballs, but, like, just because it wasn't the right time for him to make Jurassic Park, right, when he was probably first drafting it, doesn't mean that he had to give up on it. And look, it inspired my parents to ground my brother. Isn't that great? Like, isn't that so great? Dang. This is good. Do you want to... Is it my turn or is it... It is your turn. That's right. As much as I want to roll it, because I love these questions. Yeah, they're good. I try to have good questions. And we're having a pretty good discussion. It was almost an oof. Okay, this is kind of similar to your first question. What makes you want to write? What is the thing that drives you towards creativity? What makes me want to write? Lots of things make me, like, want to write. Like, where I'm just like, oh, man, I need a notebook. I should start writing stuff down kind of thing. So because there's, like, the superficial stuff that it's, like, you kind of get in the mood of, like, wanting to write things. There's definitely stuff that will, like, help me get past writer's block or whatever and, like, put me in the mood to write. I feel like those are more superficial, but yeah, like, sometimes I'll be watching a really great show or I'll be reading something and be like, I need to write and just like need to create my own thing.
Yeah.
So I guess there's that, but like the overall, what makes me want to write? I mean, we've kind of talked about this a little bit, but the ability to become a different person and have a different perspective.
Okay.
Well, like, to have a different perspective on life. Like, take on the personality and characteristics of a character in a situation.
Yeah.
And then be like, okay, how would they respond to this thing? Mm-hmm. What about this thing? What about that thing? Mm-hmm. Like, that's a very intriguing, like, brain puzzle for me.
Yeah, yeah.
It's part of why I like Dungeons and Dragons. Because you really can get deep into it with, like, a character that you're going to stick with for a campaign. But, like, for a book or a story, like, being able to jump around to different perspectives and really get into that person's head, their culture, their background, what motivates them. Maybe they're a good person. Maybe they're a bad person. Maybe they think they're a good person. But, like, that motivates me a lot. And then just, like, I just like to write.
Yeah.
I just like to write. I like to make up stuff.
So when I heard that question, I was like, but where's the question? Like, to me,
yeah.
So I've just designed my entire life around creating things, not just writing, but, like, everything I do is creating. I love art and music, and I frame things through just everything is making something. So, like, that's, like, asking me, like, why are you human? Or, like, why is the grass green? Like, it just is, right?
It just
like,
is, yeah.
There wasn't a decision that was made. I mean, I guess there was, but...
part of who you are. It can become, like, part of who you are. And there's...
But I'm a weirdo, so maybe that's not true of everyone.
You're a cool weirdo, though. I think there's, like individual motivators depending on what project or thing you're working on.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Right? Like, if you're working on, like, an art piece or a project or an activity or you're planning a thing, there's, like, a motivation for that thing. Mm-hmm. But the creativity at the core of it is kind of like, well, we like to do this thing. Mm-hmm. Right?
I think, so whenever I digest some sort of creative product that somebody else has made, whether that's reading a book or looking at a piece of art, like, if I really like it, I want to be part of it, right?
Yeah.
And how do you be part of it? You also make the thing. Yeah,
I think that's why
it's, like, a part of it.
I'll be watching a movie that's, like, really good and want to, like, stop it and go write because I'm like, my creative juices are going in my brain. I want to create the things. Like, all the time.
What was the latest thing that inspired you that after you watched it or did it, you were like, ooh, this really got your brain going?
It happens so often. And I don't.
You're like 10 minutes ago.
So I've been, I mentioned before that there are time periods where I've written a lot and there are other time periods that are like a drought.
Yeah.
I'm coming out of a drought.
Oh.
I know. I've been away from writing for a long time, which is weird for me because I was so busy with, like, school and being a student and dying all the time that I honestly really didn't have time to be human, let alone, like, explore creativity at any level.
My heart hurts for you, but you're out of it, so.
And that's the thing. I was always like, well, I don't have a lot of time now. I try, but I don't have a lot of time now. So once I'm in my career, I'm going to have a normal job and blah, 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 and life will be perfect and blah, blah, blah. So that didn't happen. I do have jobs. I do have a job. I have a great job that I won't talk about on this podcast. But to answer your question, happens all the time. Happens constantly. Like, I can't even tell you, like, well, actually, last night. What was I even listening to? I was like getting ready for bed and, like, listening to an audiobook. And I had to, like, stop the audiobook to just, like, be in my own head of, like, ooh, this is what I would write. Like, I have that. It happens all the time. And like, not to the point, like, if I wanted to soldier on and be like, and no, I'm going to watch my show or listen to this or whatever, then I do.
Yeah.
But sometimes I just like to be in my little brain and my little fantasy and be like, where would I go with this?
It's so funny because, like, as you're talking, there's so many times you'll bring up something. I'm like, I want to talk about that too. And I'm like, oh, wait, no. And then that thing, and then that thing. Mm-hmm. There's so much to, like,
I know.
digest from this conversation.
It's a great one. It's a really, really great one. But yeah, so I've kind of been in a little bit of a writing drought, but we're, like, working on it. We're working on it. I'm not as prolific as I've been before, but I feel better. I don't want to curse myself, because each time I've been starting to feel better and get to a better place, something real crap happens.
So you're like, I have to devote my energy to this.
I don't want to curse myself, but yeah, we're.
So I think there's a fundamental difference between the two of us that
my gosh.
It's okay. I mean, I'm sure you are able to create in any environment or whatever, like anyone, but it sounds like when you've got like your life together and you know what's going on, you're able to really dedicate and create great, beautiful things. I am opposite.
I do super well when I hold myself to kind of like, not a rigid schedule, but a schedule.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Like, I do really well, and I can really get my crap done, and I can be super productive with whatever. My body no longer appreciates that lifestyle, so we're working on it. We're working on it.
I am very opposite. I create my best work when I am in a terrible depressive funk, which is not usually when people are able to produce really great work, but that's me. Life has to be awful. If life is awful, I make the most powerful stuff. Here's the thing though, I get the ideas and I start bringing them down, but it's times that are good that I'm able to give myself like a schedule or something like that I can bring that work kind of like lasso it and I can edit it and make it something that's digestible and really good. But when I read back through whatever it is that I created, the best material is from when I was really, really depressed.
That's really interesting. Yeah. Do you feel like it's because like of the raw emotional state that you're in?
Yeah, I think it's so like I will be looking at the world around me in a more like, it's kind of like, okay, you know The Matrix, right?
Oh, of course I know The Matrix. Who do you think I am?
So it's kind of like when things are going really rough, it's like I can see the grid lines out in the world, right?
Yeah.
And so like also it's where I make the most like life changes, like when life is painful, right?
Stuff.
And so it's almost like I'm able to experience more and get deeper. So yeah.
That's interesting.
I don't know how to explain
really
that.
Interesting. But I like that too though, because like, well, okay. And our struggles are fundamentally different also. I have chronic migraines, and like you can't do anything when you have a migraine.
Yeah.
So like that's been like the biggest thing, and then like work schedules and stuff. So like I cannot. Nope, I can't. I can barely human when I have a migraine. So, but I love where you're coming from though, because I feel like a lot of people think, okay, if I'm going to be a writer, if I'm going to be a successful parent, if I'm going to be a successful teacher, like whatever your profession is, whatever you're working on, you get this idea of what it looks like in your head, and then you try to put yourself in that box. And I think from what I've seen from friends and my own experience, there's that idea of like, you need to have a schedule of when you sit down and you're going to write this many words and it's going to be every day and blah, blah, blah. Or like every other day. Like you have this like rigidity to it where like that wouldn't work for you. Like you could do it, but it wouldn't be your best work.
Yeah.
And that's fine.
And to each their own. Yeah. Some people, they need that schedule regimented. Yeah. But I would say, I think everybody, regardless of what your style is, you need to have time where, not that you're bored, but where you're unoccupied, where you don't have something like pressing on you, where you can just explore.
Yeah, I think that
aside time
helps me. It's those times that I start to get into the brain set of like, ooh, I want to write, because I'm letting my brain just be done.
Yeah.
Right, and not have something just like, you gotta go, you gotta do the thing, you gotta this. Like you just gotta let yourself be done. And if you write, good for you. If you don't, fine.
Yeah.
We gotta, our society is so like, go.
Yeah.
Like, chill out for like 5 minutes, guys. Like 5 minutes.
And be proud of yourself for thinking creatively, for imagining. Not that you have to produce something you can see or hold on to in order to feel proud of yourself for being a creative person. Yeah.
Dude, some of my favorite stuff of my like writing is strictly headcanon. And it will probably always be that way. And that's fine. It's mine.
Yeah.
That's mine. I'm not sharing that with anybody ever. Not because it's garbage, but because it's mine. This is mine. That's great. You want to roll the dice one more time, don't you?
I'm like tempted to be like, but I have a question for you, but I can roll the dice.
Well, okay. If you get, you're going to roll this dice. And if you get a 15 or higher, then you can ask me whatever you want. But if you roll lower than that, then that's the question that you're going to get, and that'll be your last question.
I'm feeling actually pretty unlucky, so.
An 8.
An oof.
Oh, no, it's an oof. That's a natural 1, sucker! Oh.
Do I get what I want?
No, it's a natural 1.
I know, I'm just kidding.
I get what I want.
Oh, the oof question. Is this going to be an awful one?
I usually make it a little bit like...
It can be awful.
A little bit like oof.
Yeah. Like,
ooh,
the oof.
A little bit oof.
Declan turned his face away. He can't watch.
I want you to tell me about a thing you've written that is awful.
No, Katie, I don't want this question.
And you hate it, and it galls you. He's hiding in his shirt like a turtle. Tell me what the thing is. You got a 1.
Oh, okay.
That couldn't have been better. It was, the potential was so high and you felt so low.
Let me think.
Oh, so good.
All right, fine, I'm ready. So there was, I like writing poetry, but I do not claim to be good at poetry at all.
That's cool.
But yeah, every time that I do my laundry is during like the washer and dryer load.
Time?
I write poetry.
That's cool.
So I have a few poets.
Maybe that would motivate me to do my laundry.
I think I'm all sorts of clever with poetry, right? Mm-hmm. Which maybe I'm not.
Poetry's hard to be clever with. Poetry's a whole other little beast.
Yeah, so I will disguise what I'm trying to say between like layers of symbolism, right?
Okay.
And there might be a layer behind a layer, right? Mm-hmm. Anyway, so I wrote a poem that the moral of the poem basically was I almost love this person, right? Not quite, but I'm figuring it out. Anyway, and I shared the poem with this person. And I didn't think they would figure it out. But
we're girls. We always figure it out. Shut up.
I get away with so much is the thing that I didn't think this was gonna not work. So I don't think they fully realized.
Good tea.
Yeah, I don't think they fully realized like how much I was saying in it, but they got the gist that I liked them.
Overall
yeah,
message
and
that
I was
you were
just
like into them.
And so after a period of being really embarrassed and not being able to talk, I did kind of follow it up with like oh yeah, I just, you really inspired like a poem in me, and I thought these are some good symbolisms and stuff like that. And like, but not in a weird way.
Did this
so I fixed it.
Did this no, you didn't. Did this person?
Yes, I did.
No. Did this person know that you write, that you're creative? Did they know that you write poetry before this?
Yes, and I also told them that I write poems for everyone in my life, which is so false.
That is a bold-faced lie. Okay, but it's a little bit better because it wasn't like you suddenly were like, hey,
I wrote a love poem.
like, hey, babe, I wrote you this poem. Gosh.
Anyway, so
That's
that lives in my mind.
Do you still have it? Did you get rid of it? I want to know. I want to hear.
Oh my gosh,
poem.
no! I destroyed this thing.
You got rid of it?
Yes, absolutely, 100%.
No, it's gone.
But
oh my gosh.
I do write poems about most every person in my life. So I've written one about you.
Oh.
It wasn't a love poem, so don't worry. It wasn't. You're an interesting person. You're super creative. We're friends. Yeah, I mean there was plenty to put in there, so.
Yeah, I don't know if I want your creative, constructive criticism coming back to me in the form of poetry.
Don't share a poem about someone to them.
No.
But I can still write them.
Unless it's like, well, I don't know if there's ever a good, like, situation. Like, okay, if it's your mom and it's Mother's Day, yes, probably that.
If it's you're on the same page, they know how you feel about them, maybe. Oh, but you're still dangerous.
Maybe.
You're right.
It's still, right? Because it's poetry and it can be interpreted differently than like a story or something. Like moms on Mother's Day, yeah. Anything. You can give them a rock, that's fine. Don't give your moms rocks. I don't know. I don't know if there's ever a safe time for you, like a friend.
But if somebody wrote a poem about you or a song, would you want to know it or hear it? Or would you be better not knowing?
I guess I would want to know the context of it.
I think I wouldn't want them to bring it to me directly, so I'd have to react in front of them. But I want to have sneakily found it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, maybe. Like accidentally finding something on the other end. Like if you're on the receiving end and you accidentally find somebody's like song they wrote about you or poem or something, like that's better as a way to receive it maybe because they're not
Katie.
Around.
I'm learning so much about you.
Don't bring it to my house. But like I don't know if there's ever a good situation for that
I
wouldn't be awkward.
I feel like you're putting poetry in a corner. You can't get out of your corner.
I love poetry, but I don't think I would like poetry about me.
Okay.
You know? I don't know if I would like poetry about me. I think if you're in love, right, and you're like engaged, and it's like so cute, or whatever,
you're reading your vows.
Do not do what they did, you know, in every love story ever that they called out in the Barbie movie where you sit on the beach with a guitar and sing at them. Don't do that. Don't do that unless she legitimately asks you to, and not in a like, yeah, I want to hear you sing kind of way. Like, don't do that. But if it's like, okay, you're engaged, or maybe you just got married and it's like your first Valentine's Day or something, like, it's so gaggy. It's so...
Has this ever happened to you? I feel like I'd be so flattered. No, I would be so flattered. I'd be like, thank you. But
if I was in a relationship with someone and, like, they brought me a poem that they had written for, like, a Valentine's Day or, like, my birthday or something, like a special thing, like... But we'd already have to have an established romantic relationship.
Yeah.
Right? Then it would be like, okay, that's fine. Or, like, if you're married and things are going well, then I think it's okay. But there's very few, like, friend situations that you're like, I'm going to share this poem that's about you with you.
So, my perspective is, especially when it comes to romantic stuff. Okay, first of all, I'm a single romantic loser. So we'll just put that out there. But I love the thought of somebody like expressing their feelings, not in a way that's just like me in front of them in this perfect environment where they're like saying like really bluntly like, I like you, would you be my boyfriend, right? Like
I feel paper that says yes or no on it,
you know, like circle one, right? Like I like the thought that they're like, you know what, it inspired this like piece of work or whatever, and be like, I just like want to share it with you. This shares my feelings way better than it does, right?
Which
you know, like
is why there's like that appeal, right? Because creativity, like whether it's a painting or like a carving,
not
like
words, it can be a painting, it can be a gesture,
like that. But from the girl's perspective, right? If you're not in a relationship with this person already, where there's that mutual understanding that you like like-each other, it's very creepy.
So it can't help you get the relationship,
no,
right?
Absolutely not.
Don't express your feelings.
No. They will run as fast as they can. They will be like, what? Like, well, if you think, what? No. Yeah, no, they will. That is creepy. And there's a lot of things. This is a completely different topic. There's a lot of things that people do as couples that are like, oh my gosh, that was so cute, that was so thoughtful, that if they're not a couple,
right? Yeah, no, that's
so creepy. That is so creepy. And like, as a cisgendered girl, we have to be really careful. I'm sorry, that's the world we live in, guys. Like, we were trained ever since we were little that everybody is out to get you. You have to be on your guard all the time. Learn how to use your keys as a knife, ladies. Let's go. Like, it's a thing. And so, like, it might come across as, like, this would be really romantic, but you have to have an established relationship. Okay,
I'm gonna disagree on this one. I think it's all in the way that you present it, right?
Okay.
I think you're right 99% of the time.
Thank you.
But I feel like, okay, if I were ever to share, ignoring my example of me being terrible, which by the way,
example of you totally effing it up completely.
Which, by the way, it didn't go over poorly because she likes me. But okay. Ignoring that example though. Okay. The way, if you present it kind of in a way of like, hey, I made this thing, whatever, blah, 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 and like not just spring it on them, right, and stuff like that. Is that okay?
Yes.
And also you have the attitude of like, if you reject it, I'm running the other way, right, because like I'm putting a little piece of myself out there.
That's true.
And you don't have to be like...
Creativity is very vulnerable.
And I
think if you give them a heads up.
Yeah.
Right?
And you also like, you also don't say everything that you completely feel. You maybe just give like a little bit, right?
Yeah.
That like,
oh my gosh,
it gives them like the sense that like, hey, I like you a little bit, or like I really appreciate these things about you. Not like I'm deeply in love with you and I need you right now and this is my
follow you at
ultimatum,
night.
right? Like that will always fail, I feel like, right?
Yeah.
But
if you're not already in a committed relationship, if you are like confessing deep, undying love to somebody, be prepared.
They should already know. Otherwise,
be prepared to say goodbye.
Yeah,
they
they're
need
gone.
to have already you need to already have been expressing that through so many different ways. And if they've already rejected you, this is not going to help you. This is going to hurt you.
Yes.
But I agree. If you are like giving them a heads up of like, oh, I'm really into painting, and I did this watercolor, and I wanted to give it to you.
Yeah.
Because I thought of you when I was painting the sunset, or whatever. Yeah. Poetry is tough. You'd have to. It has to be the right fit.
Right.
But like a song or poetry, I think can work. You just gotta be careful because you're walking a thin line. Do not confess undying love for somebody in poetry unless you're already established at that.
It's so funny. You're drawing like a hair thin line. I'm like, yeah, a thin line, and my mind's like
you're like
a big like
a big old scribble.
smear.
You know those giant crayons that you used to be able to get as a kid?
Oh, yeah.
Like one of those. And I have this teeny little ballpoint pen.
And it's more like guidelines.
It's more like guidelines, really. But
that's fine. To each their own.
I think you can do it, right?
Yeah.
You can do it. You just got to be real careful. And you have to set expectations for yourself, right?
Yeah.
What are your goals in doing this?
I could be destroyed by this.
If your goal is to inspire them to fall in love with you, maybe you should be doing other things.
Right.
You do this and also other things. But if your goal is to just help them know how much they mean to you, I feel like that's to
celebrate them, right?
Yeah, that's as much as like a nice card for like a birthday or like a thank you card for someone. Like if you're so creative that you freaking write them a thank you poem. Yeah.
Next level, bro.
That's super cool. So, like, it depends on the context, I think, for sure.
Anyway, writing. Yeah.
Hey. Hey. Well, this has been super fun, Risto. I really appreciate you coming out.
More tea.
I hope you enjoyed it. Now that it finally cooled down, you gotta hold the top for it to pour out. It's very concentrated in the bottom. This is all we have time for today, guys, but we will talk at you later.